So we're here today to talk about integrating with Windows device experiences. My name is Mark Potier. I'm a Senior Program Manager Lead in Devices and Networking. In Windows 8, my team worked on the camera user experience, the Play 2 user experience, as well as the print user experience. And so we're delighted today to talk to you a little bit about the devices charm. I've been designing UI, UX for about 20 years now. Prior to joining Microsoft, I started a few companies in data visualization and predictive analytics. I also worked for Amazon for a period of time where I did the first cross-site integrations between drugstore.com and amazon.com. And I also redesigned their global navigation system back in the days when they were going from one layer of tabs with all their stores in it to 2 to 3 to 4. We collapsed it all down, made it scalable and personalized. So basically what I'm saying is that I love UI. And so it was really fun to work on Windows 8 and really do something innovative. So let's talk about what we did with devices, because I think you'll be excited. We worked on the devices charm. And so you saw some other examples today of charms. You saw share, where apps can talk to apps. You saw search, where an app can serve up content and make it searchable. And now you're going to see devices, except that I'm not on the right slide. So let's do that. They told me they controlled everything from behind, but apparently that's not true. So anyhow, what we're going to do today is talk about the devices charm. And we'll also touch on 3 key experiences that we've enabled through the devices charm: printing content, playing to screens, and also sharing with somebody nearby. This is a pretty obvious statement that people should easily be able to access the devices they use most frequently. But when you think about it, when you go and redesign the operating system so it's touch-enabled, so it's designed for tablets, this is pretty hard to do, especially given the fact that Windows has a huge history with devices. We have millions of devices out there that work with Windows. In fact, I have one of my friends and colleagues that says if you stumble across a little fuzzy ball off in the corner and it has a USB plug and you plug it into Windows, you'll probably get a good experience with it, which is pretty cool, right? So there's huge ecosystem diversity, and that's something that's just a table stake for us. It's something that we didn't want to lose. But we also realized that not everybody uses a fuzzy little ball in the corner, and that there's certain classes of devices that people really want to use on a daily basis or multiple times a day. And so we wanted to make those available at a swipe of a finger. And that was a very important concept for us to narrow in on. The other thing that we looked at was that we thought that you really shouldn't need to know a whole lot about specific protocols, drivers, file formats, things that were very specific to the devices world to be able to take your application and extend it beyond the screen. We don't want you to have to invest heavily in learning DLNA to be able to take the content in your application and play it to a user's connected TV set. We want you to be able to focus on building an awesome experience. We want you to focus on building the best application you can and to innovate and to imagine. So we've made it a lot simpler. So the devices charm does 2 things. It takes all the devices that people use on a daily basis and brings them together in a single charm that's really easily accessible. It also simplifies a developer model by providing a set of built-in experiences that you can tie into from an application in a very easy fashion. We've done this across 3 different classes of devices. Printers. I think everybody here probably has a printer. If they don't, they're holding out, and they'll probably be buying one soon. But it's the second most common device, I believe, in the world. People carry phones, but printers is right up there. There's also Play 2. So we've seen this as an emerging scenario. In Windows 7, we had this capability, but it was somewhat of an enthusiast feature. It was a little bit buried in the operating system. What we're seeing is that people have more of these devices now, and they really want to be able to use them. So we elevated it to a key operating system concept. And then they're sharing with somebody nearby. And so you've seen some examples of this previously in the keynotes and in some other presentations, where people can take 2 tablets and tap them together and start exchanging information or start doing something together. And so all these are available through the charm. It's something that we're pretty excited about. So I'm going to step through these one by one and talk to you a little bit about the experience, show you a little bit of code. It's late in the afternoon, so I'm not going to fire up Visual Studio because I wouldn't know what to do with it, quite frankly. But just being honest. So, but we'll step through some code samples, show you a little bit how things work, and let's get started. So, printing content. Printing content obviously is really important. We've been printing for 20 years. Actually, we've been printing for longer than Windows has existed, if you can believe that. It's kind of a weird thing to wrap your mind around, I guess. And so we knew that it was really important that this class of device be represented in its full fidelity, its full capability. And regardless of whether Windows is running on a tablet, regardless of whether it's in a laptop or a desktop, print just needs to be there and it just needs to work. So this was just table stakes. That's where we're going to start. So let's talk a little bit about what this experience looks like in Windows 8 today. So I have here an application that our interns have worked on over the summer. And they did a great job. We basically just told them, you know what, come up with any idea that you want. It just has to print. And then they went ahead and they built it in like 8 weeks on a moving platform. It was pretty amazing. So they created this little application that's an aircraft app. You have a version of it on your tablets. This is a slightly newer version. And what it allows you to do is basically just create a paper airplane. It's great for being at home with kids on a rainy day. And you can quickly customize faces and create the airplane of your dreams. But of course, you're going to want to print that airplane. And so through the devices charm, you can come in, select it, and you can see that print is enabled. Now, what's happening here is that the application has told Windows that it's ready to print. The view is the airplane. So the thing that is intuited from this is that we're going to print the airplane. And in fact, if we go ahead and select one of these printers, I'll select just a generic built-in experience, what we get is we get a preview of the airplane that's going to be printed. Now there's a few things that just happened here. So the application just handed a bunch of content to Windows and said, please print this. Actually, let me back up. Windows just notified the application that the user wanted to print. Then the application handed the content to Windows, and Windows generated a preview. So there's two things to call out in this dialog. First is that the preview is being generated by Windows. So the app developer doesn't have to do this anymore. It's just being created automatically. The second is that we have a bunch of options here. So you're not limited to just number of copies or whether you want to print duplex. You can actually access up to 12 different options just through the built-in experience that are common across most printers. And so by clicking on more settings, for example, you can access the full list that we have available in Windows today, just for this particular printer. So the good thing about this is that this offers people some choice. They purchase their printer, they want to use it, but they don't have the full capabilities yet because they don't have an application from their device manufacturer. But they do have a broad range of capabilities, certainly more, certainly a lot that they can make use of. But let's say, for example, that they wanted to go ahead and select a printer. They purchased a printer, and they really want to use a printer that they purchased and the full functionality of it. What we have here is once again a very familiar print dialog. So this is all being supplied by Windows. But when you click on more settings, what we've done is HP has provided a Metro-style application that plugs right into the print flow in line. That's pretty cool. So suddenly what's happening is all the unique capabilities of the printer are now available to the user. The reason why they purchased that device is accessible to them. And they can go through and what's great about this experience that HP has worked on is that they own all the pixels. They decided to create this kind of a blades model for moving through their options, which is pretty cool. We hadn't modeled anything like this in Windows. They came up with it, and we love it. We think it's great. One of the things about it is that you can go ahead and select one of these options, so like say portrait to landscape. And if I come back, you'll see that the preview will just update. The app developer didn't have to do this. This just happened. Windows is doing it. So a much simplified experience, and it prints. Drum roll, please. I hear the print. It's just music to my ears. But that was a great thing, right? That's a great example of how an application can do this. I said it was contextual, so here's another thing to look at, is that let's say I wanted to print out the instructions for this airplane. So I can go to view the instructions within the app, and the app has done a great job of laying out this content for the screen. It's a nice horizontal layout, it's kind of sequential, it's pretty Metro style. It's neat. But if I print it, I certainly don't want to print out like one page per step, right? So what the application can do is it can go ahead and it can lay out that preview in a very unique fashion. So it can decide what is the best view of my content for the printed page, and through JavaScript and HTML and CSS and C# and XAML, it can lay out that content and hand it to the print experience, and it gets rendered just automatically. So it's a great experience. It's an opportunity here basically to think about not only what does your application look like on the screen, but how a user can take it and go with it and really produce a great piece of output. I mentioned that we had partner customization. This is another example. Canon did some great work as well, where they went in and identified some unique capabilities of their printers and provided them. So for example, borderless printing was one that's not included in the standard set. They also have ink levels that are represented here. So great work from our partners on that. So I'm going to switch back now. Let's talk a little bit about some other things. So how do the printers actually end up in the devices charm? Well, you saw, if you came into the devices charm and the application wasn't ready to print, there wouldn't be anything there. It would just be empty. The way the printers actually got in there for the first time, like as soon as an app is ready to print, is automatic. This is one of the great things about Windows 8, is that there's no setup required for printers. You can take your Windows 8 tablet and bring it home and connect it to your home network. And what we're going to do is we're going to go out and detect your printers, and we're going to just install them for you. And they'll show up in the devices charm and become ready to use. And it's all transparent. You don't have to go looking for them. Now you're probably wondering what happens in the enterprise, because after all, you don't want to go to work and bring your Windows 8 tablet in and join it to the network and end up with 5,000 printers on your system. So in that case, there's settings, and you can go in and manually look at what printers are available and select the best one for you. The other thing is that I think you'll agree that we have a built-in experience that's pretty rich. So we've moved beyond the handful of device or of print options that are available and provided something that's actually quite compelling for users, even if they don't have a full experience. The application for the printer is something that actually gets installed automatically when the printer is first installed and added to the system. So when we go out and we add it to your system because we've detected it on your network at home, we're going to go up to the App Store, find the app that's matched to that printer, download it, install it in the background, and all your device capabilities are going to show up right in line. So the next time you print, everything's ready to go. It's pretty powerful. It's a great way of interacting with your device. It removes complexity for the user. They don't have to worry about going to a website, trying to find a download package, or fiddling with a CD. It just happens. It's also pretty simple to implement print. So in as little as 5 lines of code, you can add basic print capabilities to your application. And if you want to get more fancy, you can use HTML and CSS to do a more extensive layout that's suited for the printed page, or you could use XAML as well. So we're happy with C# and XAML too. This is really great. I mean, it makes it very easy to produce output that's great looking. And we're happy to be able to bring this. The reason why this works so well is because we've created something new called the Print Manager. And so the Print Manager is this essentially, it's a system component that is going to be working with the charms and detecting when a user selects a charm and is ready to print. Your application is going to be responsible for providing the content and registering with the Print Manager to receive an event when the user has actually selected a printer to start printing. Then your application is going to hand the content over to the print manager, and the print manager is going to interact with the built-in experience or the experience that's been provided by the manufacturer, and go ahead and complete the entire operation. What this looks like in code really quickly is that you create a print manager object, and then you wait for an event to take place and handle it. So you have an event handler there that is going to capture, that's going to be executed as soon as the print manager indicates that the user has tapped on the charm. From there, you're going to go get the content to print, and you're just going to hand it back to the print manager, and the operation is complete. If you want to format the content, you can use CSS. So many of you probably know CSS better than I do, but you can decide what elements on the screen are going to be printable and which ones aren't. And you can decide what to hide and what to show based on your media type. And there's a lot more. So, I mean, this is scratching the surface. So we do, I say we print in 5 lines, but we don't want you to walk away thinking that, oh, Windows has dumbed everything down for developers. We're Windows, we have a deep set of capabilities. So there's a whole lot more that you can do here. And John Kay gave a talk earlier today. I would refer you to that one to go take a look at some of the more advanced capabilities that we have built in that your application can take advantage of to create great looking content. So the next thing is playing to screens. And to receivers and speakers. So we had this feature in Windows 7, which was called Play To, and it still is. And what we did with that is we released it, but it was a little bit of an enthusiast feature. If you had a DLNA device and you had taken that DLNA device and added it to your local network, and you had configured it properly, and you had configured your PC properly, and you went into the operating system and splunked around in the files and found a piece of media that you wanted to play, you could right-click on it and hit Play To, and it would work. But it's not really a mainline scenario. So one of the things that we really wanted to do in Windows was make sure that in Windows 8, this was something that people could do really easily. So we did a lot of work on that. What I want to show you a little bit about how this works. Oh, perfect. So what we have here is we have a few things. I'm going to just check and make sure that this guy is running. Which it is. Excellent. We have an application here that is a music app. And I might want to play this. I could play this locally. And certainly that would be exciting, although I don't think all of you would be able to hear it. So let me start playback here. Can you guys hear that? Probably not. So not a very compelling experience playing off of my laptop. However, if I wanted to share it with you, let me run off to a different one here. Let's say I want to share this song. What we can do, it's interesting, the app isn't, oh, there it goes. Okay, what we can do is we can go ahead and go to Devices and select, I guess it's our bedroom. So select bedroom speakers. And it starts streaming to the outside audio. So that was pretty simple, right? All I had to do was start the media in the application, and I was up and running with it. I can also do, control it remotely, so I can skip forward, I can move it back, I can pause it. So you can really use your tablet now as the remote control for your audio, which is pretty slick. You can bring in additional content, so if you're designing an application, you can imagine populating this with extra information off the web or your own proprietary content and creating a really great companion experience with the devices. So let me give you another example. So let's say, what about video? And you've seen a few examples of this already, probably. But with video, let's say I wanted to share with you a birthday party video. So we have this video that's running, and now what I want to do is send this over to the family room TV. So it's being queued up, and it starts playing on the TV. Once again, all of your devices that have been certified for Windows are now appearing in this charm and make it really easy for you to access through any of your media apps. And this is just built right into Windows. You don't have to know anything about the DLNA protocol to do this. It's very simple. Let me quickly disconnect that. Looks like it took care of itself. And there's one more thing that I want to show you, which is, what about the web? So we have this website here. If you're using HTML5, you know what? Autocomplete should save me on this. It didn't fail. Click on that. So if you're using HTML5 and you have videos and you're using any of the media tags, all these are enabled by default through Play 2. So I can go find a video that I like. Let's say, in this case, these are all HTML5 videos. I can start playing it locally here. And if I want, I can come in, select that family room TV, and it's going to queue up and play to the device. So now I'm streaming content off the web to your connected TV set through HTML5 using standards in 9010. That's pretty slick. I don't know. I think that's pretty slick. That's just, and that's just video. So if you have pictures, you can do the same. If you have audio, you can do the same. You can use your connected devices. And that's really what Windows is doing a great job at. It's making sure that you can take your applications and use all the devices that users have invested in, that they've installed on their system. Just love this video. I'm going to play it again and again. OK, so that's a little bit about Play 2. Let's go switch back. It's pretty cool. You're going to see some patterns here. Just like print, there's no setup required. If you take your device home and you just join it to your network, we're going to go look for Play 2 devices and we're just going to install them. And they're going to show up. If they have companion applications with them, or if they have a Metro-style application, we'll install that with it too. So there's no effort on the part of a user. Once they've connected their devices to their network, they're done. They'll just show up. The other thing is that we simplified the experience. I was telling you a little bit about what it was like working in Windows 7 to try to use one of these devices. It was pretty tedious. It was hard. I think we've made it a lot easier. It's all through the charms. It's exposed. It's contextual. So if you're seeing media and it's playing, you can just throw that up onto the TV, as long as the application has done a little bit of work to do that. If it's on the web using HTML5, you'll get that for free. And and then there's also simple to implement. So this is really, in 5 lines of code, you can do this from your Metro-style application. 6 lines in C# and XAML. So not a huge investment. And so if you're building a media application, the opportunity is to think about, what content do you want to play, and to wrap some of this code around it, and just to be able to start sending that content to connected devices. Windows certification is key here, because one of the things that we noticed in Windows 7 was that we used the DLNA certification to make sure that devices could connect and we could use it with Windows 7. However, we noticed that sometimes devices didn't always behave the same way. And so we really wanted to focus on the user experience, and this is something that you'll see across all of Windows 8, and hopefully you've seen to date, is that we really focused on trying to make sure that the user experience was as crisp and as clean and seamless as possible. And so we wanted to make sure that, for example, if you select media in an application and you stream it to a television set, that it queues up very quickly, that the right codecs are installed, that you don't really have to mess around with the technology, and you have a great experience with it. So that's why there's a Windows certification that's required. The other thing is that from an implementation standpoint, this is how we simplified it. Similar to print, we have a Play 2 manager. The Play 2 manager is basically going to be handling the streaming of the content via DLNA to the devices. Your application just has to identify what content to stream, and then it just has to register with Play 2 to receive the event from the charm to indicate that it should start playing. Then the application hands the content over to the Play 2 manager, and the Play 2 manager takes care of the rest. We even plumb up the controls so that if you're using the standard controls within Windows 8 and you hit pause, play, you scrub, all that just gets wired in for you. From a code perspective, same kind of thing. There's the Play 2 manager that you register for. When you receive an event, you have to be able to make sure that you can handle that, that event request. And you can just provide the content right back to the Play 2 manager and it starts playing. We can cover all these in much more depth in Ask the Experts and in questions afterwards. So I think you agree this is a really cool point, the fact that HTML5 just works. We really like this. I think another thing that you'll agree is that we still handle wired projection, so this hasn't changed. In fact, if you want to project something to a screen, all you have to do is hit WinP if you want, or else you can go through the charms. So WinP still works. If you go through the charms, you'll see project is here as well. And if you tap on it, you can still do the things that you've always been able to do. So you can still use a wired connection to your television sets if you choose to, or to a projector. None of that's changed. So let's talk about sharing with someone nearby. So this is brand new. One of the things that we looked at when we were looking at Windows 8 was, or that we noticed was that, obviously we noticed this because it was happening everywhere, is that people are using a lot of social media and they're interacting with each other over the web all the time. So it's really easy to get on any social media site and be able to post a picture or post a status update or do something like that. But if you have two people in a room together, and let's say I have some photos and I want to share them with you, that's kind of a tedious thing to do. So either I have to have a USB key and I have to copy things over, but I don't know about you, I don't work around with a USB key all the time. Or I'd have to ask you for your email address, I'd have to open up an email client, attach a bunch of photos to it, I'd have to find those in my operating system or in the file system. I'd send them to you, you'd have to download them, then you'd have to save them, open them up, look at them. It's a lot of work. So what we wanted to do was make that a lot easier. So we created basically sharing with somebody nearby. And this feature allows you to kind of essentially come into, oops, there we go. So let's say I was, we'll just set up a scenario quickly here. Let's say I was with a friend. It's right there. I have invisible friends. He is basically hanging out. He's playing around. He's just kind of goofing off. I'm getting ready to anticipate the end of build and return home and celebrate. So I'm looking for websites. And as I was browsing around, I stumbled across a website that I thought would be fun to go, or a restaurant that I thought would be fun to go check out called oddfellowscafe.com. So I find this site, and I'm pretty excited about it. But my friend here is busy playing his puzzle and not terribly interested in what I have to share. He doesn't want to do the effort of having to open his browser and go look at stuff. So we're going to make this really, really seamless for him and really easy for him. And the way we're going to do that is we're just going to come into the devices charm on my computer, say share with someone nearby, take this great NFC prototype receiver. These are really cool. They have lights on them. And basically just tap it to their device and get an invitation. If I tap on that, up comes the website that I was just looking at. So it's a very simple, seamless interaction between two computers. And I was joking, this is prototype hardware. NFC is obviously built into all of your tablets. You've seen it exercised. Hopefully you've played with it. I would encourage you to go into IE and just try this through the devices charm because it's kind of a cool interaction. You can do this with any website. And it's a great way of just interacting and quickly sharing information between two people. So we look at this as a digital handshake because it's something that two people do together. It's intimate. One of the things that it's intimate is kind of a strange word, isn't it? It's a weird word to use in technology. we did some user testing, and we talked to a lot of different users that got to play with this experience early on. And they used words like, it's like a kiss. It's like a high five. They used very expressive words to talk about the experience of sharing information with somebody. You don't come across that every day. Like, certainly not in technology. You don't see people talking about an experience as being something having an emotional connection. So that's something that really kind of caught our attention, and something that we think is very interesting to think about from an app developer standpoint. Like, how do you tie into a feature that people have this emotional connection with, an emotional reaction to? So it's really about connecting people. The other great thing about this is that you saw it show up in the charm. If you author an application, and if you had attended like Billy Sue's talk on Share, if you author an application that implements Share, you just get this for free, which is pretty neat. So any other device that has NFC, you can share with directly. You implement the Share contract, and within the context of the device's charm, you'll be able to send it or share it to somebody who's nearby. So there's zero effort involved. How do you do this? Well, you saw some examples of the sharing contract. The big thing here is to register for the data transfer manager and to listen for essentially an event that's going to occur indicating that a share is taking place. And this is on the sending side. And then you can see oddfellows.com and cafe.com at the bottom. That's the data that ends up getting shared. But there's much more. I don't want to give you the impression that NFC is just limited to what's happening in the device's charm. There's actually a ton of technology and a ton of scenarios that you can do here. One of the really cool things about this is that we've abstracted away the networking layers. So what I mean by that is that this is NFC, and it's just connecting and exchanging a quick URL. If I had those 10 photos and those were big pictures, we'd automatically spin up either Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or Wi-Fi Direct and complete the operation over a higher bandwidth. And as an app developer, you don't need to know anything about that. We're just going to do it for you. So it's pretty cool. Makes the feature very usable, very quick, very responsive. You also don't have to hold it. So once you establish that connection, you can walk away. So that's pretty cool. So to recap, we have 3 experiences in the device's charm: print, play to, and share with somebody nearby. Print is table stakes. We're going to do print. We'll always do print. It's going to be great. We'll make sure that it's full featured. Play to, we think that we've taken an experience that existed in Windows 7 and we've elevated it to a level where people can discover it and use it in a very simple fashion. And we think we have a great story for devices that are going to be able to connect in and use that as well. And finally, sharing with somebody nearby, that's something new and kind of exciting. It's a good way to hook people up and do something together over their computers in a very informal fashion without a lot of heavyweight networking. The opportunity here is for you to think about how do you take your application and how do you extend it beyond the screen to the devices that are connected to or that your users have and have purchased and that they use on a daily basis. How are you going to incorporate printing into your application and make sure that your content is going to be formatted in a great way so that when it makes it to the page, people are going to be delighted and really enjoy that? How can you actually, if you're writing a media application, how can you take advantage of Play To so that somebody who's lounging around on their couch can just take the content that they're viewing in your app and throw it up on a TV set that's nearby? Those are pretty cool. And then finally, as far as being able to share content, how do you make sure that your application can easily share the content that's contained in it with other people, whether that's triggering the download of your application on another tablet, which you can do, not quickly download, but connecting to the store, or whether that be making sure that you've taken content on one tablet and you've transferred it to the other, and you've set up your application to be able to receive that content through the OpenWidth and autoplay components. So there's some related sessions. We have a whole bunch of sessions that have already occurred. I would encourage you to go look at those. You can learn a lot more about the details of the implementation. And there's some sessions probably that will be occurring in the next couple days as well. We have lots of reading and documentation for you. Devices is a pretty extensive area. And once again, I don't want to leave you with the impression that there's only 5 lines of code that's required to implement any of these features. That's sort of to get things up and running. and it'll give you a pretty full experience, but you can go a lot deeper and you can customize your application to work in really interesting ways. So please review this content and you'll be able to learn a lot more about this. So thank you. We're going to have an Ask the Experts session a little bit later today. I would encourage you to attend. We'll be there to answer questions, and I'm happy to talk to anybody who has any questions up front. Thank you very much.